Welcome to Inner Peace with Dr. Reese, a program that can help you become liberated in the modern world. Now, here's your host, Dr. Kevin W. Reese.
Have you ever had sacred sex? Welcome to episode number 82. Today, I'm talking with Lady Shepsa Jones. She is a sacred sex coach and author. In this conversation, we're going to talk about creating orgasm with no partner, no masturbation, and how to circulate that energy. We'll talk about how having a meditation practice actually enhances your sex experience. We'll talk about oral sex being a form of worship, your sex organs being a channel for energy. We'll talk about the feminine energy being stronger than the masculine energy. We'll talk about overcoming body shame for tantric sex. And also, we'll talk about what the deal is with these infamous yoni eggs. So sit down, relax, and take in this beautiful recording. Lady Shepsa, welcome to the Inner Peace Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We have lots in common, so there's a lot to talk about here. I'm very excited that you know how to circulate your energy and create your own body orgasms.
Yes, yes.
This is a game changer. How would you describe the power of sexual energy to someone that doesn't understand?
Wow, that's a great question. I would describe it as the foundational power that we all have, the primal power that we all have. I would describe it as the very essence of our creative energy. And it's almost like tapping into a battery, or a wellspring. It's that type of powerful energy that is like foundational, but also nourishing.
A lot of women, most women, don't understand that they can make this happen on their own. And they always think they need a partner. And so what would you say to them on discovering this energy and what they can do with it?
Yeah. So I would say, number one, the power to be orgasmic and to use your sexual energy is your power. And as a woman especially, you actually have a unique advantage over men even. And I think
big time.
Yeah. And society raises us to see that, men are more sexual than women, and, men are just like these sex crazed zombies. And we're just like these, supposed to be this kind of pure innocent women who just kind of just do it, but we're not really supposed to enjoy it like that, right? So what winds up happening is that women don't have a connection to their own bodies. And that's the first disconnect, because if you don't have a connection to your body, then you can't have a connection to your sexual energy, right? So if you walk around and you're disembodied, you're disconnected from your body, you're therefore disconnected from your sexual energy. So then you're looking and you're giving all your power away to a man or to a partner, and you want them to come and awaken, to please you, right? Or to awaken this, wonderful sexual experience in you. Or you just figure that whatever, sex is for the man, and I'm just gonna lie here and like hurry up and get over and be done. So I can go about my day, right? Because I'm not even enjoying it. I'm not even present, or maybe I am enjoying it, but I shouldn't enjoy it too much, and then that makes me a whore, right? Then I don't want to be, right? So a lot of women, particularly because of Western culture and religion, has taught us that sexual energy is dirty, is nasty, and as a woman especially, like your sexual organs are nasty. Your menstrual cycle, like all of that, hurt. So it's so much that we've been programmed with that it makes it actually really hard for women growing up in this society, just raised in kind of like maybe average American or Western society, maybe even just semi-religious parents. But all those messages that you get from the media, from religion, from education, it's very disempowering. So for a woman to connect to her sexual energy is really about her connecting to her creative energy and also her desires. And this is one thing I write about in my book. When you have a woman that is disconnected from her desire, she's therefore easier to control. And one way to be connected to your desire is that sexual desire, right? So we have all these women who are walking around and their sexual energy is repressed, then their desires are repressed. So they're not they're not seeking what they want sexually. They're not censoring their pleasure. They're not maybe choosing partners who honor them, or if they get a partner, they may not be able to relax and to let go, right? So if you're doing that in the background, then it has to, and most likely it is manifesting in other areas in your life. So maybe your career isn't juicy and fulfilling. Maybe your relationships are, maybe you don't have the highest self-esteem. There's so many different ways, like people see it as sex is very like minimal, right? This is a minimal part of life, and whatever. If I don't have sex for 2 or 3 years, what's the big deal? Because there are a lot of women whom I've spoken to who will go months and years even without having sex. And it's just like whatever, But it comes down to me, it's also about being in connection with your desire and your creative energy, and having those two things at your access so that you can create your life based upon what you desire and what you enjoy,
That sexual energy is our life energy, and we can circulate it and do all sorts of things with it. One of them being orgasm. You mentioned something a few minutes ago about especially women, and I just want to bring light to that topic a little more, because the feminine energy is very powerful, and more powerful than the masculine energy. I think most spiritual people would agree with that. You have more things going on in your body than I do. And we if we're aware of this, we notice this in the act of foreplay or whatnot, because a woman is very erotic, like the whole body. The man isn't as much. Man's got his one little square spot. A woman is completely erotic. Every inch of skin can be completely aroused. And so this is the gift, the divine gift that women have. And perhaps it's the other side of the coin of having babies and having the menstrual cycle and having to go through that stuff, right? You have this very magical gift, and most women can get to a higher plane of spirituality. I'll use the word easier or more directly than a man. It's just they're not aware of it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's a great point you made about like this balance of having a menstrual cycle, going through pregnancy, with being able to be multi-orgasmic. I had one of my tantra teachers taught me that to be multi-emotional is to be multi-orgasmic. So in order for a woman, she has to be in touch with her emotions, right? That's the feminine, being in touch with your emotions. And you talked about men. Yeah, men can have a harder time because they could be more ruled by the head. They could be a bit more disconnected because masculine energy, for a good reason, tends to be ruled more by logic, right? In these things. Feminine energy could be more intuitive and emotional. So our ability to be multi-emotional and to hold space for such huge experiences like pregnancy and your menstrual cycle, which you go through every month, which brings, has a huge effect upon your emotions. Being able to kind of ride those waves does help to, open us up to be orgasmic. And it's just unfortunate. I think times are changing now that we've been taught to see things like that as negative, right? We see emotions women's emotions is like, oh, too much. It's hard to see that as negative, and doctors treat pregnancy like it's a disease or an ailment, and menstrual cycles is like, but there's just so much power in the feminine, and power in the masculine too. And the masculine is beautiful, necessary, and needed. It's just that we live in a society where the feminine is not valued, and that's damaging to men and to women.
How would you say we find balance between being free with our sexuality, with our sexual energy, but also being promiscuous, or being not too promiscuous?
Yeah, good point.
Because I know women who are very promiscuous, and they're just, they'll jump from guy to guy. They don't necessarily have sex with multiple partners at the same time, but they'll, one guy for 4 months and another guy for 6 months, and they'll jump from partner to partner.
Yeah, and I think there's a misconception that being, quote unquote promiscuous or having lots of sex even makes you sexual and sensual. It doesn't. You could have a bunch of partners. There are women who maybe sleep around or promiscuous or whatever, but that doesn't equal them being full body orgasmic or multi-orgasmic, or that they're even finding pleasure. There's a number of reasons why someone could be cycling through partners like that. And there's no judgment on it, at all, whether that's a positive or negative thing. It's more so like, what is the mindset? What is the consciousness with which you're experiencing these partners? Because for me, once I started studying sacred sex and I started working on my own energy, and I was doing that for years before I experienced like a tantric or sacred sexual experience with a partner, doing it by myself. But once you start activating that energy in your body, then the partners that you are attracting and that you're even attracted to change. So it becomes kind of difficult to be like going from man to man to man or whatever, because it's like most people are very unaware of that type of work, and most of them can't meet you there, So for me, like being highly sexual and having a strong connection to my sexual energy, anything, it makes me more picky with partners, because I become very open spiritually when I have a sexual experience. Like I go into trance, and everybody can't handle that.
See,
everybody can't hold space for that, or
let's pause there for a second, because I constantly say on this podcast and on my social media that the orgasm is a doorway to the divine, because we're dealing with our sexual energy, our life energy, and when we go into that orgasm, we're losing our mind. For someone, it might just be for 2 seconds, and so you can meditate into that and catch a wave. And people aren't aware of this because they're so used to the rough, pornographic style, traditional New Age style of mating. But if we just flip that on its other side, we can have experiences like you're talking about, going into a trance. Shed more light on that trance, please.
Yeah, well, I will say that having a personal spiritual practice comes first, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I meditate daily and I do Qigong pretty much every day. And it was my practices that I've built up over the years that have made me open. So, I want people to understand that it's not just about getting into the bedroom. Though some people can connect to a partner and they can just open up these doors magically that they've never experienced before, because sexual energy is that powerful. Some people probably have had glimpses of the divine, like you said, in sexual experiences that just kind of happen spontaneously. And you're like, whoa, like, what was that? Like,
right.
Sexual energy is that powerful, but also, being a practitioner, you're cultivating that energy every day, right? So that when you do come to be with a partner, the door just opens. You don't have to struggle for it so much, or it's not just so, you want spontaneously, you know what I mean? Like, you're ready, right? When that partner comes. So going into trance for me, it's like a continuation of the work that I'm already doing on myself spiritually that allows me to be open. So when I do get with a partner, even if he is not skilled in sacred sex or tantra, even if he doesn't know anything about it, I'm still able to access that energy in myself, you know. But you do want partners who, you know, at least have a certain level of respect and connection to you, that even if they're not a practitioner, they can still be present with you, hold space, and take direction, you know, of things that they can do, you know, when you're having that moment. But yeah, for me, it's like a very like visceral kind of like I absorb my partner's sexual energy, you know, as well.
Just trading energies.
Yeah, like I feel his, like when he orgasms, it's like I'm having another, you know, orgasm myself, and that can, you know, open me up and send me over the edge. So yeah, it becomes this beautiful, just play and experience, and you know.
And we should inject that. This isn't new. This is ancient. This is just
Oh my
ancient,
God.
ancient stuff. So I think you brought up some amazing points. One of which is you can't just give this to anybody, especially the full tantric experience, which might be candles and incense and perhaps a 4-hour event, like blocking 4 hours out of your, you know, your day. I mean, it could last for hours and hours, and it's not just all intercourse. There's a lot of eye contact, and I mean, there's foreplay. I mean, there's a whole menu, if you will, of things that can happen, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is something that more people need to be aware of with sex and sacred sex. It's not just the penetration. You know what I mean? It's not just that. Like you said, like the incense, the candles, the eye gazing, the conversation, the intention setting, right? Because you can direct that sexual energy to manifest something and heal something. You know, the foreplay, like all of that is about it, is a part of it. Whereas the penetration, it's almost like you don't even necessarily always need it. You know what I mean? Because the whole experience is orgasmic and sensual and fulfilling, you know, emotionally, as well as physically as well. And I think just so much in our culture, this modern Western culture, is just about, you know, like penetration, like rough sex and beating it up and, you know, all of that, which is very desensitizing for the man and for the woman, you know, as well. Most women don't like it. They may pretend that they do, but you know, most women are not orgasming from, you know, having somebody just beat it up. You know, we need something a bit more and deeper. And I think that we just haven't allowed ourselves to advocate for ourselves as women a lot of times, or express our needs, you know, because we're afraid to speak up about our desires and our sexual desires.
I feel like women and men that are looking for that type of sex, you know, it's almost like eating junk food, kind of, if you want to use the analogy to diet. You know, it's like pizza, ice cream, candy, cake versus fruits and vegetables. You know what I mean? And it can get very addicting to have the pizza every day, to have the fried chicken every day, to have the ice cream every day, to have the lollipops every day. You know, my observation is that people who don't necessarily like their life and how things are going are the ones that want the sex, and they want it as nasty as possible over and over and over and over again. And their tolerance keeps going up like alcohol. I used to be in the music game. You might be surprised to know. I was a radio DJ, so I interviewed a lot of rappers in my 20s. And I met this one guy, I interviewed him multiple times, not going to say his name. But he said he had so many threesomes that he couldn't deal with one girl anymore because his tolerance his sexual tolerance was so high, like an alcoholic would be high with like 30 beers instead of 3. And so this is someone that was having sex with a lot of women over and over and over and over again, and his tolerance shot up.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I think that comes with that being desensitized. And it's like your nervous system is like overloaded. Like you burnt your nerve endings out, you know? And it's like that's the opposite of what sacred sex is about. It's actually about becoming more sensitive, where you don't need like so much excess of like hard sex or rough sex or threesomes or whatever. And no judgment, you know, for people who I think is a place and time for everything, you know, but that like you said, doesn't become this like addiction, you know, where your tolerance levels that you can't even become, or you can't even have an orgasm now unless you have, you know, X, Y, and Z in place. And sacred sex, like this can be orgasmic, being sensitive. And I think there's so much in our culture, especially even now with like social media, like we're so desensitized in so many ways because we're overstimulated. And, you know, that's why I think it's important to unplug, and meditation. All these practices are very important so you don't get that. Because where do you go from there? You know, what you know, you got to have 2 women at a time. Then what's next? Like, and then you start to realize your soul isn't being satisfied. It's not even just the physical cravings now. It's like there's a soul, there's something missing in the soul, right? That's not being fulfilled. And you're trying to get through these excess experiences.
I've had women report of having some sexual experiences from listening to this podcast. I had this one woman who was listening to my meditations on Spotify and Apple and all that, and I'm not talking about sex at all, but she had these, you know, these sexual experiences. And, you know, so I get these women sometimes that come to me, and because they like the way that I speak, and they don't even want me. They don't even want to touch me. They just talk to me. Just talk to me. And
you have a great voice. I can see that.
thank you. And so I dated this one woman who was into all this stuff, and she, you know, she didn't even want to do anything physical. She just keep talking to me, and keep doing it like that. And she kept having these experiences because she was learning how to circulate her energy, and I guess she was using me as a catalyst for that. And so this is what I advocate for people, is to just relax. There's great power in relaxation.
Yeah, absolutely. And we live in a culture so much that's about us running on tension. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Everything is like tense. Because I mean, I'm in New York, so people are like fast paced. I mean, coronavirus has slowed a lot of things down, and I think that's why a lot of people are having a hard time because they're not used to being still, you know, not being able to go out and things like that. And yes, there is like the loss of human connection. That's, you know, important too. But yeah, a lot of us, we don't even realize, because I'm also a massage therapist. We don't even realize how much tension we hold in our body, and that we're in a state of tension like all the time. Like chronic stress is real. So that relaxation, and even when it comes to women having an orgasm, a woman cannot have an orgasm if she doesn't, number one, feel safe, and number two, if she is not relaxed. You know, so all this tension, if you're tense all day, you know, then you're gonna have tense sex. You know, and some people do use it as like a tension release, but like the potential is so much greater.
I've been waiting for this topic. I can't wait to talk about this. I'm a big advocate of foreplay and oral sex versus actual coitus, actual intercourse. Not that that's bad. I'm not saying it's bad in any way, but there's something about oral sex that I find devotional, very devotional. You just said you're a massage therapist, so, you know, you have an understanding of the devotion aspect of it. Can you, unpack that a little bit? I mean, because
Yeah.
I feel like, especially a guy to a woman, right? It's a very, again, the woman's body is very, very erotic. A man could spend lots of time on a woman's body, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's worship. I mean, that's what tantra is. Like you're literally worshiping your partner. And in India, you would see statues of the yoni, which is, a Sanskrit word that people used to mean vagina, but it actually translates to mean sacred space, divine passage.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see they have statues and images and iconography of the yoni, and also the lingam, which is the penis. So understanding that these two organs are not just a physical organ, like they are a channel to access divine energy, to access that divine feminine and that divine masculine, and when you are able to look at your partner as a divine being, then yes, oral sex becomes this opportunity to worship and to receive energy, as well. You're giving pleasure when you're doing it, but you're also receiving, energy from this organ, which is more than just the organ. It's really just a channel and it's a gateway, to these divine energies of masculine and feminine.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like the oral sex part, and I think when you find a partner who, man or woman who really enjoys that, they themselves, for so orgasmic in the giving, not just receiving.
You can go back to ancient scriptures, sutras, the Bible, whatever. There are always instances where somebody's washing someone's feet, or working on someone's hair, right? We go to Jamaica, we talk about dreadlocks and things of this nature. There's devotion there, there's worship there with helping people out in all sorts of ways. And I feel like oral sex fits under that umbrella.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I've thought about it, but to think about it in like the context of all those other things that you mentioned, touch and hair and adornment and like blessing your partner's body, that's really dope, But I think, part of the issue where we're not taught to see it that way, there's a vulnerability there that can be hard for people for, if you're giving or you're receiving, you know what I mean? Because we haven't been taught to see that activity as an act of worship. It's kind of like, well, I'm going to give this to you. He's going to just give this to me, and if I don't like him, I'm not going to really do it.
Right.
Like
right.
It becomes like a power play, as opposed to I want to really share, this experience and with another divine being.
Yeah. Like when I tell a girl, I'm like, have you ever meditated into an orgasm? Or I say, well, I meditate during my orgasms. And they're like, what do you mean? You put your arms up like this? You like make this motion? Like, no. So that devotional process of oral sex, you can really get a good meditation
going. Yeah. Tantric rituals would last for hours because they were meditating. And you mentioned about these practices being ancient, and like that's super important to realize that yes, in ancient times when they didn't have the distraction of cell phones and social media and TV or like whatever else, there was actually so much time spent to learning these techniques, and studying it. So much that lineages of priests and priestesses were created and initiated into these practices, as being very sacred and very, very holy, and also being like very sexual. Some of these old tantric texts and the Taoist texts are very specific and very explicit and very sexual, in a way that's about healing and health and spirit, and I feel like, we in Western cultures, like on one hand, the sexual energy is really repressed, and on another hand, it's also really exploited, and objectified.
Sex sells.
Yeah, exactly. So sex sells, but at the same time, we see it as dirty, and women as whores that they enjoy it. It's just really interesting this dichotomy that we have.
Well, the majority of people are addicted to pornography too, which, if I'm not mistaken, came out in the 70s, and it just, once the internet became available, I mean, you got 15, 16, 17-year-old boys and girls out there right now who they're watching porn, and that's desensitizing them to the real thing.
Absolutely. And not understanding that porn is an entertainment. Like, these people are actors.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's really hard when young people and even adults, right, who are watching it don't actually recognize or realize that woman in the video is like 99% she's faking her orgasm, like for the most part, because these videos are also shot from the gaze of a man. I think they have other porns that are shot for, from a woman's perspective and things like that. But for the most part, most porn is shot from the gaze of a man. So all the camera angles and what they want to see the woman doing is like a man's fantasy, where it's not really about her pleasure, number one. It's about him getting off or whatever. It's
about power.
Yeah, power, definitely.
That's what it's always been. Even back in the day when I was a little more promiscuous, it was all about power. It's like, oh, she's into me. How far can I take this? And it's an ego trip, is what it is. Because a man's orgasm it's minuscule compared to a woman's orgasm. Minuscule. So what is the man really, really getting off on? Power, ego. I'm somebody.
Yeah. I was actually reading a Osho quote today.
Okay, go ahead.
I posted it on Facebook like years ago. You know how Facebook will send you the reminders, like you posted, this on this day, 2017, you posted X, Y, and Z. But the Osho quote was talking about why a lot of times men are, so promiscuous and going from woman to woman, is because if you're going to really get deep with one partner, you have to allow yourself to be seen. You got to allow yourself to be vulnerable, but it's much easier, like you said, the metaphor before of junk food. It's much easier to snack here and snack there, and you think you're getting full, but you're not really getting full. You're not really being satisfied, but it feels good and it tastes good in the moment, right? So you're going from here to here and there, but you're not allowing yourself to go deep, right? You have a lot of surface experiences, surface relationships, and you're bouncing from, one vagina to the other, But, what you said about the power and ego thing, like that makes total sense. And I think, as a woman, now that I'm older, I can see that in a man, you know what I mean? Like when it really is just about him, for women, like looking at the partners that you need in your life, because they're not ready, then if a man is not ready to really be vulnerable, open himself, then he can't go deep with you. He's just not capable, and that's fine. You can bless him and send him on his way. But I think sometimes women can get into this trap thinking they're going to change a man and change his perspective. If I sleep with him enough times, he's going to love me and respect me. And it don't go that way.
A wise person once told me, you got to be able to hang out with the person without being horny. For a good partnership.
Yeah, exactly.
Earlier, we talked about tension and being relaxed. In order to be this open and this vulnerable, we have to get past our body shame, right? A lot of people have body shame, especially women, because women have to deal with the Kim Kardashians and the Nicki Minaj's and the TMZ sort of culture, right? Oh, my booty isn't that big, or I'm going to go get breast implants, or whatever it is. It could be as simple as acne. Men, I had a gentleman on my podcast many months ago named Ken Freed, and I welcome anyone to go listen to that episode. Ken Freed wrote a book about his penis because he has a small penis, and he had to come out and tell as many people as possible in order to overcome his body shame. And I thought it was the most remarkable thing I've ever heard, because you hardly ever hear men with the body shame. It's usually women. So he had to do that in order to open himself up and further his relationships and whatnot. And, you know, it could be penis, it could be chest hair, it could be whatever. Some men have body shame. What do you say on the topic of body shame? Do we have to overcome it to be free?
Oh my God. Yes, and I love how you mentioned that men have it as well. And I think both sexes have it. And I think that women, of course, you know, have it in a different way that is, you know, very shameful and harmful. Like you said, you have the images of women who bought their bodies, like Kim Kardashian and Nicki Minaj and all of them. Like, that body has been bought and paid for, you know, with lots of surgeons and things like that. It's not real, you know, it's a fantasy. It's just not reality. But, you know, with men as well, you know, I think that's incredible. He wrote a book about having a small penis, because that is something that, you know, like a woman can, you know, there's a man who likes every body type in a woman. Like, there's some men who like big women. There's some men who like really skinny women. Like, I found that any woman can pretty much get a man no matter her body type. But there is lots of shame, you know, with men with small penises. Because what can you do about that? You know what I mean? It's just, it is what it is. So the person has to either love you and take you, or, you know, or not.
We're right back to that word, devotion. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think body shame is something that is super hard. And, you know, I have a teenager, he's 14 right now, he's going through puberty, and I feel like, you know, in many ways he's going through more body shame than even I did, you know, I mean, as a boy. But I mean, I didn't have Instagram, I didn't have YouTube, and I didn't have, you know, like a constant inundation of images that are really fake for what you think your body's supposed to look like, you know. So I think being able to accept your body, you know, which is something that I talked about at the very beginning, women being disconnected from their bodies, like, your body is your temple, you know. You have to have a loving relationship with your body if you want anybody else to, you know. So it's going to be very difficult for you to have a really healing and beautiful sexual experience, a relationship, if you're walking around with a ton of body shame. Because no matter how much, even your partner, like, I've talked to people who their partner, you know, they have a partner who doesn't really love themselves. And the partner can tell you all day that you're beautiful and that you're amazing, you're fine as you are. But until it sinks in here and in here, it's going to still be that blockage there. So, you know, some of the practices that I do with women is, like, I have them, like, look in the mirror. You look at their body, you know, praise your body. Find things about your body that you love and that you admire, like touch your body, massage your body, you know, connect to your body. It is your temple. And you have to be the first person to worship at your temple before anybody else does.
I'm reminded of the old great spiritual master, George Gurdjieff, who said that his father gave him 2 pieces of advice. 1, wake up with the sun every day. 2, go outside and dance naked.
Yes.
And, you know, to just be free and not care what anyone thinks.
And what people don't realize is that when you have that energy about yourself, that becomes contagious, and everybody else will begin to reflect that back to you.
Confidence.
Like, you ever confidence? So I'm sure we've all seen a woman or a man who may not actually be that physically attractive, but they exude an energy that is sexy and that's magnetic and that draws people to them, you know. And it's about what's happening on the inside and how they feel connected to themselves. And that is the most beautiful thing. That is the most sexy thing, because, you know, there are people with 6-packs who are depressed and suicidal. You know what I mean? There are women with big old booties and big old boobs who hate themselves and can't stand what they, you know, see when they look in the mirror. So all of that, at the end of the day, is not going to make you happy. You are the only ones that make you happy.
The super beautiful women with the big Instagram followings, they're in my DMs telling me how can I get rid of anxiety. So
yeah,
they're not hitting on me. they want to get rid of anxiety. Let's talk about you. Your story is so fascinating to me. You grew up Christian, Bible thumper, reading the Bible, Christian family. You didn't lose your virginity until you were 22 years old. I mean, you beat my record. I was 18. And you were married. You waited till marriage. You got married. You had a child, family, doing it by the book. But then something changed. What changed?
I think, honestly, the big breakthrough was having my son. Because it allowed me, number one, I was home with him, and seeing how my ex-husband and I were not aligned, and though at the time I wasn't Christian at the time, but we were in another spiritual community, which was more like an Afrocentric Egyptian spiritual community. Okay. But it's interesting how when we break away from Christianity, we still recreate some of those same paradigms and structures even in other traditions. So
okay.
that spiritual system also had its own rigidity and things like that. So I began to just really see how my ex-husband and I weren't on the same wavelength spiritually. And I felt myself just shrinking. Like I had been a theater major. I went to NYU for theater. I was a creative writing major in high school. So I had all this like creative energy and performing and things like that. And it was like, I got married and then I was with ex-husband and we were in the spiritual community. Like so much of it became shut down where I literally lost my voice. During the last year or two we were together, I literally got laryngitis like redundantly, and it was a spiritual blockage that was in my throat chakra because I wasn't speaking my truth. I wasn't performing. I wasn't creating. I wasn't, really writing and doing these things. So, I kind of just went through an experience. Also, let me not fail to mention, I began also to develop feelings for another man while I was married. Well, and it was like this sexual energy that was coming up, and like that was very scary to me because that was definitely a big no-no.
Right.
Lust after somebody else.
Yeah, it's natural though. It's natural though.
Yeah, but what it was though was that this other person was a reflection because he was an artist. He was a traveler. He was a reflection of the things that I was repressing in myself, and that's why the universe kind of brought us together. And life was for me to see my potential that I was repressing and that I wasn't being my true self. So it was so much of that, where things just kind of came collapsing down for me, where I realized that I was not being the woman who I was meant to be, and that I would not be able to evolve into this woman in this marriage and in this relationship. Because when I started to explore the things, or I even brought up like tantra and sacred sex to my ex-husband, and he looked at me like I was crazy. He was like, "What are you talking about?" Like it was not of interest to him, and spirituality wasn't really of interest to him. Period.
Right.
So for me, I was just like I felt like a prisoner. That's what I felt like, a prisoner, and I was just like I can't. I gotta get free, and I have to find out who Shepsa is. I have to find out who this woman is. And I knew for me, part of that was exploring my feminine energy and sacred sexuality, because I had always, even though I was a virgin until I was 22, I had been self-pleasuring since I was before kindergarten, maybe 3 or maybe like 4. I would say 4, safely. I probably gave myself an orgasm at 4 years old, and growing up just through middle school and high school. Like I always had this very sensual, erotic energy inside of me, but I felt ashamed of it, because this is not what good girls are supposed to do. And I felt like I couldn't act on it. So that's why, I was a virgin for so long. So I just knew in leaving that relationship that I had to really get into who I was as a woman. And that included my feminine energy and my sexual energy. So once I left, I began to just read a lot of books, and I found some teachers.
How fast before you ran across Osho?
Oh,
Did he find you? How did he find you?
How did I find Osho? I think probably I saw some videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
Or like somebody shared a video on Facebook. I'm sure that's how I first found Osho, was through his videos. And that's one thing that he talks about, like you were saying, like a woman's whole body is erotic,
Yes.
And,
yes.
Listening to him speak, and he's one of the teachers whose books I got. He got his book on Tantra. And I don't know, I strongly believe in past lives. You probably do too.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely believe this is from a past life. And it was just like, all right, it's time for you to remember what you forgot.
That's right. And, I bring up Osho because he's my deceased guru. And, he's the one that brought Tantra to the Western world in the 60s. So we might not even be having this conversation if it wasn't for his work, really. I mean, other people write about it and talk about it, but he brought it in a time, that hippie generation, instead of free love and sex, he's saying, no, you do it a certain way. I mean, you can have sex. It's okay to have sex, but do it like this instead of like that, and watch what happens.
Just listening to Osho talk is like a meditation. Like,
it is.
He puts you to trance just with his voice and his cadence and how slow he speaks. It's amazing. Yeah, Osho's dope.
So your story is amazing. I appreciate that you had the courage to make this big change, and you said you had a Tantra teacher and everything. So you must have went all in.
Yeah, for a while, I was just kind of reading books of my own, but I was also, I would say I'm even more Taoist.
That's great. How would you describe what womb trauma is?
Oh my God. Oh. Womb trauma can be anything as, I don't want to say it's small because I don't think any of it is small, but I think a lot of women don't think of certain things as womb trauma. Womb trauma can be just you being entered before you're ready, when you're having sex. And I'm sure all women, particularly ones who have sex with men and maybe even some who don't, have experienced that, right? If somebody enters you before you're ready or before you have like fully given consent, like that is trauma, for any woman who's experienced that, like, what it feels like. What it feels like to be entered before you're ready. And that's trauma. It could be anything as, huge, I guess, as like having an abortion or a miscarriage, being raped. All of that brings trauma to the womb. Any type of experience that is damaging, to your feminine organs, to your feminine energy, is womb trauma. Being touched, when you don't want to be touched. Molestation is huge for men and women, but for a lot of women, that creates trauma in the womb as well, and I think it's something we're definitely not taught to think about or to look at.
Speaking of the womb, what would you say the point is of using yoni eggs?
Wow. So, yoni eggs are great. I would say, all right, so some people think of yoni eggs. So I can grab one. I got one.
Yeah, show me.
Right here by my altar. All right. So, yoni eggs, for anybody who doesn't know, it is an egg clearly made of gemstone and crystals. So jade is probably the most famous and oldest form that you'll find yoni eggs in jade. And it is a Taoist practice, and it comes from China. And originally, it was only used by the women of the royal court. So you had to be like on the in crowd to like know about these eggs. So the women would use it to become what they would say. That was very interested in becoming immortal, right?
Yep.
So it was all about using this to be immortal, which really means to maintain your youth and vitality even as they age, right? So you're using this egg to, yes, number one, tighten your vaginal muscles. So you are doing Kegels and things with the egg, but it's deeper than just that. With using the yoni egg, you're really basically opening up your core channel, your energy channel for your sexual energy to be able to raise and flow. So it becomes a tool that, does heal your womb. It does break up stagnant energy because when you're using it, you're bringing chi to your womb, to your vagina. So, if a woman is doing Kegels while she has the egg in, it's bringing blood flow, it's bringing chi, which helps to break up cold energy in the womb. Now, a lot of women have cold energy in their wombs because there's lack of movement there. Diet-wise, we sit a lot in this culture. We don't move our hips. We don't circulate our energy there. So a lot of women have coldness in their womb, which if you have menstrual cramps, that is, a lot of times symbolic of having, cold, stagnant energy in your womb. So when you're using the yoni egg, you're helping to break that energy up because you're contracting, you're bringing blood flow, you're bringing chi, you're bringing life force there. But the other part of it is that it helps to send your chi up, right? So a lot in Tantra and Taoism is all about opening that energy so it's beyond your genitals, right? And that's how you get the full body orgasm, that you're circulating, you're bringing the energy up. So the yoni egg is another tool that helps to do that. But, I want to emphasize that because some women think it's just about having a tight yoni, which is great. And it is, about that and strengthening those muscles there, but it's also a spiritual tool.
I'm glad you shed some light on that. As we start wrapping up here, you are taking clients and you're running a program, right?
Yeah. So right now I have my Badass Goddess on Fire coaching program, which is inspired and linked from my book that I just published last month, which is called Nice for What? How to Go from Being a Good Girl to a Badass Goddess, which is basically my story, broken down in a way, sharing tips for women who have that good girl persona. You could have been the one who was a virgin until marriage, or you didn't have sex and you got the good grades. You were just kind of like the perfect, Miss Perfect. You did everything right according to what you were told to do. But you realize that, you're not being authentic and true to yourself. So it's about taking a woman through that journey. And part of that is connecting to your sensual and your sexual energy. So I have that. I often run another course that I call Sensual Goddess Boot Camp, which helps women to, is kind of primarily just focused upon the sensual and the sexual practices within Taoism and Tantra. And it's like a 30-day, every day you get a different exercise to do, to help awaken your pleasure and your feminine and sensual energy. I also even have a free bundle on my website that women can get that has meditations in it, affirmations in it, and a sensual goddess activation meditation. So I have a lot that I offer.
My last question. And I also want to say thank you for making me not look crazy anymore, because I kept telling people you can orgasm without a partner, without masturbation. You can circulate your energy. You can hit that root chakra and something can happen. So you're confirming I'm not crazy.
I'm confirming you're not crazy at all. I've experienced it and it's repeatable.
Repeatable, right? So my last question, how does someone like me who doesn't desire regular, traditional, rough, pornographic sex, how does someone like me find the right partner that is either into what I'm into or wants to get into what I'm into? How do I attract that person?
That's a great question. And, it can be challenging, what I found with myself is that as I work upon myself, the partners that I attract are of better quality and they elevate. So I have had partners who are practitioners of Tantra and sacred sex and can go there with me. and that's great and beautiful. But I've also had partners who were just naturally gifted or open and, can go there with me because they're open and they're, willing and able. So, I would say, you know, continue to work on yourself to elevate your energy. And your partners, I believe, are always mirror reflections. So as you elevate, then the types of partners you attract will also elevate. But I don't know, maybe we need to start like a tantra like dating app or something like that. Because it could be rough out there. I'm not going to front,
Yeah, you can't just go to the mall. You can't just slide in someone's DMs and be like, "Yo, baby,
Right.
you got 4 hours available. We're gonna light some incense and stare into each other's eyes."
Right, exactly. So,
Lady Shepsa, this has been a really great conversation. I really appreciate your time, and I thank you for confirming I'm not crazy.
yes, I definitely appreciate this conversation. Definitely need it. And I love talking about this topic. Other like-minded people, and also sharing it with your viewers who may not be as aware.
And you can find Lady Shepsa's work on letgoletgoddess.com. If you want to help support my work and help support this podcast, I would ask you to consider becoming an exclusive member of our Patreon page, which is in the link in the description. I'll give you bonus material, and you help us keep the lights on. Also, be sure to share this episode with someone that needs to hear it. And I'll talk to you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Inner Peace with Dr. Reese. If this episode opened your heart, feel free to share on social media and tell your loved ones. Also, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, may peace be with you.